On the rumbling highway, the truck's engine vibrated beneath her, lights flickering past the window like restless fireflies. Nathan gripped the wheel with one hand, the other resting firmly on Emily's thigh. His touch steady enough to make her catch her breath. The road stretched endlessly ahead while the world outside slumbered. But inside that cab, Emily trembled, caught between fear and desire. Both married, both trapped in lives they never intended to intertwine. Yet, in that moment on the rain-slicked motorway, she knew there was no turning back. Emily Martin was 33, a business graduate, and the daughter of Richard Martin, owner of one of the largest freight transport companies in northern England. Raised amid warehouses, rows of parked lorries, and high-stakes meetings, she had always lived under her father's stern gaze. Richard believed loyalty was the glue holding both family and business together, and he demanded it fiercely. Emily's life seemed perfect from the outside. A charming detached house on the outskirts of Harrogate, a steady marriage to Julian, and a comfortable role managing accounts at her father's company. But beneath the polished surface was a suffocating void, a routine too tight to breathe in, a life too ordered to live. Everything changed the day she accepted the most unusual task of her career. Her father wanted her to test the trustworthiness of one of his longest-serving drivers, Nathan Brooks, 42, married, father of 2. Suspicious of everyone, Richard devised a plan. Emily would intercept Nathan on the road, climb into his cab, and offer a sum of money to fake a cargo robbery. Emily wasn't an actress, but her father trusted her cold resolve. That night, drenched by steady rain, she flagged down Nathan's truck, posing as a desperate stranger. Sliding into the cab, she placed an envelope stuffed with fake £50,000 notes on the dashboard. "You can keep this if you pretend the cargo's been hijacked," she said, voice steady. What she hadn't expected was Nathan's reaction. Unlike others caught in her father's trap, he looked at her with weary dignity and told her to get out. She left him trembling in the rain, convinced her father would commend his honesty, and indeed, Nathan was promoted soon after. But what no one knew was what happened next. When Emily saw Nathan again at the office days later, he was no ordinary driver. He was the man who had seen through her lie, the only one who had made her feel vulnerable without touching her. Both married, both bound by vows, yet that spark in the cab lingered, soon to become an uncontrollable flame. Mondays at Martin Transport were chaotic. Drivers shuffled in and out, secretaries juggled piles of paperwork, phones rang incessantly. Emily moved through the storm with practiced calm, overseeing accounts, managing routes, and acting as her father's proxy in his absence. That Monday, amidst folders and hushed arguments, Nathan arrived on time, his jacket damp from drizzle, clutching a folder. He greeted the receptionist in his deep, gravelly voice and headed to the dispatch desk. She had seen him at the office before, but now everything was different. She no longer saw a mere driver. She saw the man who had stolen her breath in that absurd test. Their eyes met briefly, a lightning strike in the dull office light, and both looked away simultaneously, as if the whole room had held its breath. During the logistics meeting, her father rattled off figures. Fuel costs, EU regulations, new contracts. Emily barely listened. Sitting opposite Nathan, focused on his notes, she felt his presence like a live wire crackling through the room. When the meeting ended, the room emptied quickly. Emily gathered her papers when Nathan approached. "Good morning, Miss Martin," he said, voice formal. His words sent a shiver down her spine. No one but the most distant employees ever called her that. "Good morning, Nathan," she replied, forcing neutrality. There was a pause. He seemed about to say more, then stopped himself. She did the same. They stood too close for comfort, their hearts pounding a secret rhythm. Nothing else happened that day, but in her mind, the scene rewound endlessly. That night, lying beside Julian, her husband, she found herself thinking of Nathan, of the strength in his hands, the seriousness in his gaze. Feeling guilt and a strange electric aliveness, throughout the week she saw him often. In the parking lot, the staff canteen, the corridors. Every encounter was a silent game of quick glances and loaded silences. Then Friday came. Emily was late leaving the office, switching off hallway lights when she heard footsteps behind her. Nathan appeared carrying folders. "It's late," he said, offering an excuse thin as the rain that clung to his jacket. "Yes," she answered, unsure what else to say. They walked together to the main exit. Outside, the drizzle began again. He paused, studying her with that serious look that always unraveled her. I shouldn't say this, he began softly. But since that night on the road I haven't stopped thinking about you. Her breath caught. She jerked her head aside, afraid someone might overhear. But they were alone. Just the two of them and the rain. Me neither, she whispered, barely audible. No touch, no kiss. Just words, but enough to seal an unspoken promise. A secret waiting to ignite. The following week was a dance of restrained looks. In the corridors, the canteen, the truck park. They spoke only when necessary, yet the tension was palpable. A taut thread neither dared pull too hard. Thursday afternoon, while reviewing documents in her office, Emily's phone buzzed with an unknown number. There's a cafe on the A59, discreet. Tomorrow at 6. No signature, but she knew instantly it was him. She spent the evening wrestling with herself, thinking of her daughter, of Julian, of the risks. But by morning, her decision was made. At 5:30 a.m., under the pretense of checking accounts, she drove toward the cafe, a humble place with wooden tables and the rich scent of strong coffee. Nathan waited in a corner, a cup in hand. When he saw her, he smiled briefly, a mix of nerves and something softer. They sat opposite each other. For a long moment, silence hung heavy. Thanks for coming, he said quietly. You know I shouldn't be here, she replied, voice low but more confession than complaint. He nodded. Neither should I. I have a wife who trusts me, kids waiting at home. But since that night, something inside me won't switch off. Their eyes locked. She spoke the words she'd been rehearsing in her mind for days. Me too, she admitted, voice trembling. And that scares me more than anything. The silence was thick, filled with everything they wanted to say but couldn't. Then a simple, decisive touch. His fingers brushed hers across the table, not clumsy or desperate but calm and sure, a silent promise that she wasn't alone. Emily froze, trembling, then slowly intertwined her fingers with his. The moment changed everything. They ordered 2 coffees and spoke of trivialities, truck routes, endless rain, supermarket prices. But their hands remained entwined beneath the table, an unspoken secret burning hotter than any caress. When she rose to leave, he walked her to the door. Outside, the rain fell steadily before she could open her umbrella. He leaned close and murmured, "This is just the beginning." He didn't kiss her. He didn't need to. She saw it in his eyes, in the strength of his voice and the warmth still lingering in their joined hands. Driving home with her heart pounding, Emily forced a smile for Julian and their 6-year-old daughter. But inside she knew the truth. She had crossed a line and there was no going back. The days following their secret meeting at the cafe unfolded like a slow-burning fuse, setting off a chain of silent explosions beneath the surface of Emily's carefully constructed life. At the office, her interactions with Nathan became charged with a dangerous electricity. Words were scarce, too risky, but every glance, every barely suppressed smile spoke volumes. The corridors of Martin Transport, usually dull with routine, now pulsed with an unspoken tension that made Emily's pulse quicken. Even in the dullest moments on Tuesday afternoon, while immersed in a mountain of invoices in the logistics office, Emily's phone buzzed again. The message was brief. The Oakwood Hotel, mile 32 on the A1. Tomorrow at 5 a.m. Her breath hitched. This was it. The point of no return. That evening, she concocted a story about a supplier meeting and slipped out of the house with her heart pounding. The drive to the hotel was a blur of rain-soaked roads and racing thoughts. Parking in the rear lot, she slipped through the dimly lit lobby and found Nathan waiting. His dark jacket pulled tight against the chill, eyes shadowed but burning with the same intensity she felt. Their conversation was minimal. A few whispered greetings, but the silence between them spoke louder than words. Upstairs, behind the closed door of room 214, the air thickened with anticipation. Nathan pulled her close, their lips meeting in a kiss both tentative and urgent, like two people rediscovering a forgotten language. It was awkward at first, fumbling hands and hurried breaths, but soon the kiss deepened into something fierce and consuming. Emily felt herself unraveling in his arms, the years of constraint, duty, and hollow routine melting away. The world beyond the hotel room ceased to exist. There was no company, no husband, no expectations, just two souls desperately clinging to a forbidden connection. Afterwards, they lay tangled in tangled sheets, listening to the rain tapping against the window. Nathan gripped her hand tightly. "We can't stop now," he whispered hoarsely. "Not when this feels this real." Tears pricked Emily's eyes. "I know," she breathed. But what about everything else? Julian, my daughter, your family? He kissed her forehead gently. I don't have the answers, he admitted, voice thick with emotion. But I know I don't want to lose you. Returning home in the pre-dawn darkness, Emily slipped silently into bed beside Julian, whose steady breathing was a cruel reminder of the life she was betraying. She closed her eyes, tasting the ghost of Nathan's kiss on her lips and feeling the weight of the impossible choice settling like a stone in her chest. From that day, the stakes escalated. Their meetings became more frequent, more desperate. A stolen coffee in the truck yard, a hurried embrace in a deserted warehouse, whispered confessions exchanged in shadowed corners. Each encounter was a dance on the edge of discovery, the thrill entwined with terror. One late evening, Nathan approached her in the office corridor, voice low and dangerous. I'm driving to Manchester tonight. Come with me. Just for a few hours. The mere suggestion sent a shiver down Emily's spine. To ride in the cab with him under the cloak of night was madness, but the craving to be near him overpowered caution. She nodded, heart hammering. When the house was silent and Julian asleep, she slipped out, the chill air sharp against her skin. At the company yard, the trucks glowed under yellow streetlights, like beasts waiting to roar. Nathan's cab was warm, the engine's vibration a soothing hum beneath her. Sliding into the passenger seat, she felt the world shift. The road stretched before them, dark and endless. The rhythmic thrum of the engine, the passing headlights, the smell of leather and diesel, it was a world apart from her tidy life. Nathan's hand found hers, resting casually on her thigh, firm and reassuring. She swallowed hard, heart caught between fear and exhilaration. If someone sees us, she whispered. Nobody's watching at this hour, he replied with a smirk. Besides, I think the road's our best confidant. They talked little, letting silence fill the cab. Every touch, every glance was a secret conversation. When the city lights blurred behind them and the motorway stretched empty ahead, their lips met again, clumsy and urgent, a rebellion against the suffocating rules that governed their lives. A quiet service station. Nathan pulled the truck aside, hidden from prying eyes. In the cramped cab they tumbled into each other, hands exploring, breaths mingling. The world outside ceased to exist, replaced by the heat of their shared defiance. But even as passion burned bright, reality lurked just beyond the windshield. Each kiss, each touch was a wager against the inevitable. Back at home, Emily wore her usual calm mask, smiling at Julian, helping their daughter with homework, but inside a storm raged. The lies were piling up, the guilt gnawing, but her desire, her need for Nathan, was a flame she refused to extinguish. Her father, Richard, was growing suspicious. He called her into his office more frequently, his sharp eyes probing for cracks in her carefully maintained facade. Emily, he said one morning, voice low and tense, I need your full focus. Too many discrepancies in the accounts, and your absences are becoming noticeable. She nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. She knew the truth. If he ever uncovered her secret, the consequences would be devastating. Not just for her marriage, but for the family business. Nathan felt the pressure too. One afternoon, over coffee in a quiet roadside pub, he confessed, sometimes I look at my kids and feel like the worst father alive. But then I think of you and I don't know how to stop. Emily reached across the table, squeezing his hand. We're both prisoners of our choices, she whispered. But maybe we're free in that prison. The weeks that followed were a delicate balance of stolen moments and mounting risks. They moved their meetings to more secluded spots, abandoned farms, quiet country lanes, forgotten rest stops. Their love became a secret language spoken in glances and touches. Yet, danger loomed closer. One Friday, as Emily lingered late in the office, she found herself drawn to the storage room, a dusty space usually empty after hours. There, Nathan waited, his expression tensed. We can't keep hiding, he said, voice low. Your father's watching. Julian's watching. We're running out of places. Emily swallowed hard, heart pounding. Then what? Give up? No, he said firmly. But we need a plan. Before she could respond, the office door creaked open. Both froze, breath caught. Richard Martin stood in the doorway, eyes blazing with fury and betrayal. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then, in a voice cold as steel, her father said, This ends now. Emily's world shattered in that instant. The line between love and ruin blurred beyond repair. And yet, even as the walls closed in, a dark promise hung in the air. the story was far from over. Beneath the storm of secrets and lies, a deeper mystery waited, one that would test loyalties, break bonds, and force impossible choices. The road ahead was uncertain, but Emily knew one thing for sure: whatever came next, she would face it on her own terms. Because some fires once lit refused to be extinguished. The tension in the office was suffocating after Richard's cold declaration. Emily stood frozen, her heart pounding against her ribs like a trapped bird. Nathan's face was a mask of restrained anger and worry, but beneath it, she saw the flicker of defiance that had drawn her to him in the first place. Richard's eyes bore into them both, sharp and unforgiving. "This ends now," he repeated, voice low but threatening, like the distant rumble of thunder before a storm. Emily swallowed hard, searching for words that wouldn't come. The walls of the polished office seemed to close in, the heavy oak desk a barrier she dared not cross. She felt the weight of everything: her marriage, her daughter, her father's empire, all teetering on the edge of collapse. Nathan stepped forward, voice steady despite the storm in his eyes. "With all due respect, Mr. Martin, what happens in my personal life shouldn't affect my work." Richard's lip curled in disdain. "Not when your personal life destroys my family and my company." The room was silent but for the echo of his words. Emily's breath hitched. She felt exposed, raw, like a secret laid bare for the world to see. The faces of the senior staff around the table showed everything, from shock to thinly veiled judgment. Richard's gaze locked on hers. "You've jeopardized everything, Emily, the business, your marriage, your reputation. And for what? A reckless affair with a man beneath your station." The sting of his words cut deeper than any sword. Yet in her chest a fire blazed stronger than the fear. "I don't regret it," she whispered, voice barely audible but resolute. "I love him." A murmur rippled through the room. Nathan's eyes met hers, fierce and unwavering. For a fleeting moment they were allies against a world determined to tear them apart. Richard slammed his fist on the desk, making papers jump. "You'll end this tonight, or I'll ensure you never walk through those doors again. Nor will he." The threat hung like a guillotine above them. Emily's world fractured, but somewhere deep inside, a stubborn ember refused to die. That night, Emily sat alone in her dimly lit kitchen, the hum of the kettle the only companion to her swirling thoughts. Julian's distant figure in the living room, immersed in the TV's glow, was a painful reminder of the life she was about to shatter. Her phone vibrated. A message from Nathan. "We have to meet now." Her pulse quickened. She grabbed her coat and slipped into the wet night, the rain cold against her skin but a welcome distraction from the turmoil inside. The truck park was deserted, the rows of lorries standing silent sentinels under the pale street lamps. Nathan waited beside his rig, coat pulled tight, eyes shadowed but burning with urgency. "We can't keep living like this," he said, voice tight. "My family, your father, Julian, they're closing in." Emily nodded, tears threatening. "But I can't stop. Not now." He took her hands in his, rough and warm. "Then we fight together." The silence between them was thick with unspoken promises and the weight of impossible choices. Suddenly, headlights cut through the darkness, Richard's sleek black car pulling into the lot. Emily's heart leapt into her throat. Her father stepped out, face grim. "Enough hiding." Nathan squared his shoulders. "If you want war, you have it." Richard's gaze flicked between them, cold and calculating. "I will destroy you both, one way or another." Emily felt the chill of his words settle deep, but she refused to back down. This was no longer just about passion. It was a battle for her life, her freedom. Days later, whispers spread like wildfire through the village and the company alike. The scandal was on everyone's lips. The daughter of Richard Martin entangled with one of his most trusted drivers. The quiet town of Ripon buzzed with gossip. The local pub was abuzz with hushed conversations and knowing glances. Julian's demeanor shifted from suspicion to cold withdrawal. One evening, as Emily prepared dinner, he broke the silence. "I know everything." Her hands trembled. "Julian, no more lies," he said flatly. "I want a divorce." The world tilted beneath her feet, but she met his gaze with unexpected calm. "I don't want to lose you." He shook his head, the finality in his voice shattering the fragile hope she'd clung to. "It's already gone." In the midst of the chaos, Nathan's own life unraveled. His wife and confronted him with quiet devastation. her eyes hollow yet fierce. "You've destroyed us all," she said softly. "Our children, our family. And for what? A fleeting dream?" Nathan's guilt was a heavy chain, but the fire for Emily burned brighter than ever. "I don't regret you. Not for a second." Their worlds were crumbling, but in the ruins a fierce love took root, wild, dangerous, and impossible to ignore. One stormy night, as rain hammered against frosted windows, Emily sat by the fire with Nathan, the flickering flames casting shadows that danced like ghosts. In their embrace the world outside faded. No father's wrath, no husband's betrayal, no whispered scandal. "I don't know what the future holds," Nathan murmured, tracing patterns on her bare shoulder beneath the thin silk of her blouse, the faint scent of jasmine lingering between them. Emily smiled, a bittersweet curve. "Neither do I. But for once I'm choosing me." Their lips met, soft and fierce, a promise forged in defiance. Yet as the storm raged outside, Emily's phone vibrated. A new message flashing on the screen, unknown number *. "You think you're safe? You haven't seen the worst yet." Her breath caught. The past wasn't done with her. The future was a shadowed road winding into darkness, and the next move was someone else's. The game had only just begun. The message glowed ominously on Emily's phone screen, its words slicing through the fragile cocoon of warmth she'd found in Nathan's arms. She stared at it, heart hammering, mind racing through every possibility. Who could be watching? Who could know? And most terrifyingly, what did the worst even mean? Nathan noticed her sudden stillness. "What is it?" She hesitated, then showed him the message. His jaw clenched, eyes narrowing with a mixture of worry and resolve. "We're not alone," he said quietly. "Someone's waiting for us to slip." Emily swallowed hard, the sense of danger tightening around her like a noose. Their secret was no longer theirs alone. The shadows had eyes. The following morning, the Martin transport offices were buzzing with an unusual energy. Richard Martin's presence loomed large, his sharp gaze slicing through the usual hum of activity. Emily felt the weight of his scrutiny like a physical force, pressing down on her shoulders. Nathan was noticeably absent. Rumors had already begun to swirl, whispers of threats made, warnings issued. Emily's phone buzzed again during a meeting with suppliers. Stay alert. Trust no one. She glanced around, paranoia prickling her skin. Even the familiar faces seemed tainted, eyes flickering with suspicion or something darker. That afternoon, as she filed reports in her office, the door creaked open. A man she didn't recognize stepped inside. A tall figure, dressed sharply but with an air of menace that set her nerves on edge. "Emily Martin?" His voice was smooth, almost polite, but carried an undercurrent of threat. "Yes. Who are you?" He smiled thinly. "Let's just say I'm here to make sure things go smoothly. Your father sent me." Her heart sank. This was more than a family dispute. This was war. Late that evening, Emily sat in her car outside a nondescript building on the edge of town. The rain fell in cold sheets, blurring the world into streaks of gray. Nathan had arranged this meeting, a chance to talk without prying eyes inside. The dimly lit room smelled of stale coffee and tension. Nathan paced restlessly, his face etched with worry. "We need a plan," he said. "Richard's not just angry. He's dangerous. And now he's brought in outsiders. People who don't care about family or business. They want to break us." Emily nodded, feeling the weight of his words settle deep. "What do we do?" Nathan stopped pacing and looked at her, eyes fierce. "We disappear. For a while. Lay low. Let the storm pass." The idea was terrifying, abandoning everything, risking everything, but also strangely freeing. The next days were a whirlwind of whispered phone calls, hastily packed bags and stolen moments. Emily said goodbye to Julian with a forced smile, hiding the truth behind rehearsed words. She kissed her daughter on the forehead, promising to call soon, her own heart breaking. Nathan's family was a different story. Anne's eyes burned with betrayal and sorrow, but she said nothing. The fracture was too deep. Under the cloak of darkness, Emily and Nathan slipped away from Ripon, leaving behind the ruins of their lives. They found refuge in a small coastal town in Cornwall, far from the eyes that haunted them. The sea air was salty and wild, a stark contrast to the suffocating confines of their past. Their new home was modest, a small flat overlooking the harbor, where fishing boats bobbed gently and gulls cried overhead. It was imperfect, but it was theirs. Emily found work at a local accounting firm, her sharp mind a welcome asset. Nathan took a job driving for a regional delivery company, the roar of the engine a familiar comfort. Though the scars of their past remained, here they could breathe love without fear, and build something new. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery hues, Emily and Nathan walked hand in hand along the beach. The waves lapped gently at their feet, carrying away the ghosts of yesterday. Nathan stopped and looked at her, eyes soft. "Do you regret it? Everything we lost?" Emily smiled, the wind tangling her hair around her face. Not for a second, but he pulled her close, the warmth of his embrace a balm to her soul as darkness fell. A lone light flickered on a distant cliff, a lighthouse standing sentinel against the night, and somewhere beyond the horizon, the past whispered, waiting for the next move. Because some stories don't end with a goodbye. They only pause, and the next chapter waits in the shadows. The lighthouse's beam swept steadily across the darkening coastline, casting long shadows that danced like ghosts on the rugged cliffs. Emily traced its path with weary eyes, feeling the weight of everything they had left behind pressing on her chest. Here in this quiet seaside town, she had hoped to find peace, to bury the past beneath the crashing waves. But the flickering light seemed to call to her, a reminder that some dangers never truly disappear. That night, as rain tapped softly against their window, Emily sat curled on the small sofa, Nathan's hand warm around hers. Despite the calm of their new life, a shadow lingered in the corners of her mind, a whisper of unfinished business. Her phone buzzed, breaking the silence. She glanced at the screen. An unknown number. Her heart tightened. With trembling fingers, she opened the message. "You think you're safe. But the game is far from over." A cold shiver raced down her spine. She looked up at Nathan, eyes wide. "They found us." His face darkened, jaw clenched. "I feared this." Outside, the wind howled, as if echoing the storm gathering around them. The following day, Emily tried to focus on her work at the accounting firm, but every shadow felt heavier, every glance more suspicious. The town's peaceful facade was beginning to crack. Strange cars lingered too long in the streets. Unfamiliar faces appeared at odd hours. Nathan grew restless, his usual calm replaced by a simmering tension. One evening, as they sat watching the sun dip below the horizon, he spoke quietly. "We need to be ready. They won't stop until they've taken everything." Emily nodded, determination hardening her features. "Then we fight smarter." Their days became a careful dance of caution and resilience. Emily changed her routines, varied her routes, and learned to read the subtle signs of danger. Nathan reached out to old contacts, piecing together who might be behind the threats. Shadowy figures tied to Richard Martin's business empire, determined to crush them. One rainy afternoon, a knock echoed at their door. Emily's pulse raced as she peeked through the peephole. A young woman, soaked and shivering, eyes wide with fear. "Please," the woman whispered, "I need help. They're coming for me too." Emily hesitated, then opened the door. The woman stepped inside, clutching a worn leather folder. "My name's Lucy," she said, voice trembling. "I used to work for your father's company. I have information that could change everything." That night, the three huddled around the small kitchen table, poring over the documents Lucy had brought. Financial records, secret contracts, coded messages, evidence of corruption, betrayal, and a web of deceit that ran deeper than anyone had imagined. Emily's breath caught as she read the names. Familiar faces, trusted allies turned enemies. The stakes were higher than she'd feared. Nathan's voice was grim. "This isn't just about us. It's about the whole company, the legacy your father's built." Emily clenched her fists. "Then we expose it. We bring the truth to light." Lucy nodded. "But they'll come after us harder than ever." In the days that followed, Emily and Nathan took calculated risks. Late-night meetings in shadowed corners, encrypted messages sent through secure lines, alliances formed with journalists and whistleblowers. The quiet seaside town was no longer a refuge but a battleground. One evening, as Emily returned from a covert meeting, she found her flat ransacked, Drawers pulled open, papers scattered like autumn leaves. A chilling message was scrawled across the wall in red ink. Stop now, or lose everything. Her hands shook, anger and fear warring within her. Nathan arrived moments later, his face a mask of fury. They're trying to break us. Emily met his gaze, voice steady. They'll have to try harder. The following morning brought a tense silence. Neighbors whispered of strange noises, and the local police made polite but unhelpful inquiries. Emily sat by the window, watching the waves crash relentlessly against the shore. In her heart, she knew this was only the beginning. Nathan joined her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. We're in this together, he said softly. She nodded, leaning into him. No matter what comes. As the sun set, casting blood-red hues across the sky, Emily received another message, this time with a photo attachment. It showed a familiar face. Richard Martin standing outside their flat, watching. Her breath caught. The war had come home. The next move was his, but Emily and Nathan were ready. Because some fires once ignited refused to be extinguished, and some secrets demand a reckoning. The game was far from over.